Right now, somewhere in the world, an elderly parent is sitting alone in a room they didn't choose, waiting for a phone call that will never come. They raised children, they gave everything. And then, one day, quietly, without a funeral or a goodbye, they were simply forgotten. We talk about almost every crisis in the world: war, climate, poverty, mental health. But there is one quiet catastrophe that happens inside homes, inside facilities, inside families, and almost no one says its name out loud. Elder abandonment. This is the quiet catastrophe. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 6 older adults experiences abuse, neglect, or abandonment. And in the majority of those cases, the person responsible is not a stranger. It is a son, a daughter, someone who was once carried, fed, and loved by that very same person. This is not a story about monsters. That would be easier. This is a story about ordinary people and what ordinary modern life can quietly do to love. Before we talk about why it happens, we need to understand who it happens to, because the forgotten parent does not fit one face. She is the immigrant mother who left her country, her language, her entire identity to give her children a better life and a new one. He is the father who never once missed a school day pickup, who worked overtime for 20 years, who never bought himself new shoes so his children could have them. She is the widow who raised 4 children alone after her husband died at 43. He is the man who built a house with his hands and assumed, quietly, that family meant permanence. In the United States alone, 11 million seniors live in complete social isolation. In China, over 130 million elderly citizens live either alone or with only an aging spouse. This is a direct consequence of the one-child policy and decades of economic migration pulling younger generations towards cities and away from their origins. In South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the concept of placing a parent in an old age home was, 1 generation ago, considered shameful. Today, that industry is growing at nearly 20% annually. In sub-Saharan Africa, grandparents raise their grandchildren while being simultaneously abandoned by the generation in between, lost to urban migration, economic desperation, or the AIDS crisis. A grandmother feeding a small child, her own eyes, tired, proud, alone. This is not a cultural failure. This is a global pattern, and it is accelerating. Abandonment almost never happens in a single moment. There is no door that slams, no final declaration. It happens the way fog moves, slowly, until one day you cannot see anything at all. Researchers and elder care professionals have documented a consistent pattern. It begins with distance. First, geographic, as adult children move for work or opportunity. Then, emotional, as visits become calls, calls become text, text becomes silence. Next comes what sociologists call obligation fatigue. The adult child is overwhelmed by careers, by their own children, by financial pressure, by the sheer mental load of modern survival. The parent's needs begin to feel like one demand too many. Then comes the role reversal crisis. Many adults are psychologically unprepared to become the caregiver of the person who once cared for them. It triggers grief, anxiety, and sometimes avoidance. And finally, the facility solution. A care home is found. It is framed as the responsible choice. The visits start well, then they become monthly, then occasional. Then, the data tells us what happens next. Quiet nursing home common room, residents seated, no visitors. 60% of nursing home residents in the United States receive 0 visitors in an average week. Not one. Not a phone call. Not a card. 0. We tend to think of loneliness as an emotion. It is not. It is a physiological condition, and it is lethal. A landmark study from Brigham Young University, conducted by researcher Julianne Holt-Lunstad, found that chronic loneliness carries the same mortality risk as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It elevates cortisol, the stress hormone, weakens immune response, accelerates cognitive decline, and increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. Abandoned elderly individuals show measurably higher rates of depression, dementia onset, and early death than those who remain socially connected, even in identical physical health conditions. There is also a documented cardiac phenomenon called Takotsubo syndrome, sometimes referred to without exaggeration as broken heart syndrome. It is a sudden weakening of the heart's left ventricle triggered by acute emotional stress. It presents exactly like a heart attack, and it kills. A hand reaching for a telephone on a nightstand, dialing, waiting. No answer. UCLA research has shown that social isolation in elderly individuals activates the same neural pain pathways as physical injury. The brain processes being forgotten the same way it processes being burned. They are not being dramatic. They are not being needy. They are in pain. Documented, measurable, neurological pain. And still, they wait. And still, they forgive. This film would be dishonest if it did not sit here in this uncomfortable place for a moment. Not all estrangement is abandonment. Not all distance is cruelty. There are adult children who carry wounds from their childhoods that never healed. Wounds inflicted by the very parents they are now expected to care for. Documented histories of emotional abuse, neglect, addiction, and violence exist in families across every class and culture. For some people, distance is not indifference. It is survival. That truth deserves space. But here is what the data also tells us. The majority of elderly individuals living in institutional abandonment, with no family contact, no visitors, no calls, have no documented history of having harmed their children. They are not estranged. They are simply deprioritized, outcompeted by schedules, replaced by convenience. The 2023 AARP Family Caregiving Report found that more than half of all family caregivers received 0 help from their siblings. The burden falls on one person, usually a daughter, and the rest quietly disappear behind the word busy.